This is the Savvy Investor radio show and podcast. For help with your retirement, schedule a 15-minute phone conversation with the team at ProStatus Financial Advisors today. Just call 866-597-1040 and at thesavvyinvestorradio.com.
And welcome back to the Savvy Investor radio show and podcast with the team at ProStatus Financial. My name is Randy Cook. I am here today with Lawrence Kiely and Ryan Herbert, and we're going through some of the issues of planning for retirement, some of the things that are concerning to you, and maybe some of the answers that we can provide for you and help here at ProStatus. And I've got a list here, guys, from Kiplinger. I like this. It's the 5 golden rules of retirement planning. So I wanted to run them past you, see what you think, see what's missing, see what's off track, or see if they're right on track. And the first one, Ryan, this is pretty all-encompassing. It says, remember your L's, the lifetime income, liquid savings, lowering risk, lowering taxes, and legacy. That pretty much, if you had all that, you pretty much have it, I would think. What do you say?
Well, it sounds like whoever wrote this article at Kiplinger listens to our podcast, because that's kind of what we talk about. Every single podcast is one of those topics. You want to make sure that you never run out of money in retirement. That's, making sure you have lifetime income. You want to make sure that you've set up your portfolio in a way so that your income comes in every single month in, month out, year after year, the same amount adjusted for inflation, without having to worry about whether the stock market's up 20% or down 20%. And kind of part of that goes along with, when you look at your assets, you want to make sure that you're essentially bifurcating your assets. You don't want to dedicate all of your assets to generating your income in retirement, because then you don't have an emergency fund. You don't have anything liquid, which is that other L, that liquid savings. You want to make sure that once I've secured my income, once I've set aside the assets to make sure that I'm not going to run out of money in retirement, I'm going to have the income that I need, that I have another bucket of money to access if I need. I need to buy a car. I need to put a new roof on the house. I need a water heater. I want to buy that RV. I want to take the kids on, a Disney cruise, because that costs an arm and a leg and a half at this point. So you want to make sure you have that. But then also both of those two things, making sure I have the income I need, make sure I have my liquid savings. You want to make sure that you're taking the least amount of risk necessary to accomplish the goal. If you can accomplish those two things while earning 3 to 4% interest or growth rate, why take on the risk of losing 20 to 30, maybe even 40% on that money if you don't need to? So that's really that lowering risk, making sure you're paying the least amount of taxes along the way, because once again, risk ties into the first two. Taxes tie into the first two as well, because you want to make sure that income stream that you're having coming in is as tax efficient as possible. And then whenever you need to pull out 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 and some type of emergency from my liquid savings, I also want to make sure that is as tax efficient as possible. And lastly, legacy. I want to make sure that I'm leaving something behind. Some people have this goal of, I want to leave behind $500,000, $1 million, $2 million to my kids, or, whatever's left over when I'm gone is what goes to them. Well, the way you make sure you're leaving something behind is by making sure that you have an income stream that you can outlive, that then kind of translates to making sure I have my extra money that I want to take the least amount of risk on, because that's essentially what I'm leaving behind to my kids. And I want to do it in the most tax efficient manner. That way I'm not leaving this financial burden to my kids. I'm not making them pay 30 to 40% in taxes on my money just because I didn't have a plan for taxes. So figuring out the L's of retirement, your lifetime income, liquid savings, lower risk, lower taxes, and legacy plan is all part of having a sound financial plan, because all of those pieces have to work together, because all of those pieces are very interrelated. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why some people choose to work with advisors that ignore the tax aspect, or they're not allowed to talk to you about taxes. Some of those statements that you get from Schwab, Fidelity, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Ed Jones, any of those places, right there at the bottom of the statement, it says, we can't talk to you about taxes. Go talk to your tax professional. So then you're working with a financial advisor. They're referring you out to some other tax professional. They may or may not be communicating. And then if you have a question about estate planning, you're getting a third referral, and that's yet another person that you're going to. How do you know that everything you're doing with your estate plan is being properly updated, for your beneficiaries with your financial advisor? How do you know that the recommendations that your tax professional, your CPA, your tax preparer, that he's saying to do, you're telling your financial professional? How do you know that that's being done the proper way? How do you know that if all of a sudden I want to take $10,000 out of my liquid savings for emergencies, how is that going to affect my taxes? Are you getting a specific answer of here's exactly what it's going to do to your taxes? Or are you getting those generic answers of, well, we recommend you take out 20% for federal withholding. And if you're in Maryland, 7% for the state, or whatever your state taxes is. You want to make sure that all the advice that you're getting in all those areas is as specific to you as possible, because your situation is so unique. Yes, there might be some overlap with other clients, but your situation is specific to you. Why take any type of generic advice in figuring out those L's in your retirement?
You're listening to the Savvy Investor Radio Show and podcast with the team at ProStatus Financial. We're going through an interesting list here today, the Kiplinger 5 Golden Rules of Retirement Planning. And number 2 reminds me of some of the advice that I got from Mom, and that was don't put all your eggs in one basket. Use all the asset classes. And Lawrence, if I want to be diversified, but having 10 mutual funds isn't really diversified because it's all market driven. They're talking about saying use the market, use the banks, use the insurance companies, use real estate, use all the different asset classes to spread your risk out in retirement. Is that something that you talk to people about, and do they take you up on that?
Yes, I mean, it's diversifying the plan. It's diversifying the planning. It's, just like an asset allocation, but it's going wider than that and broader than that. And it's diversifying all of your assets. So using the market, and it kind of ties back to that first golden rule of income, savings, lowering risk, taxes, and then legacy. It's using all these different financial tools that you have available to you to diversify a full plan and have it in different asset classes. So using the market for growth. We can also use it for income at times, but then we can use the banks for liquidity, right? Keeping up with inflation using certain CDs or money market funds. So using the banks, making sure we have liquidity, and then using insurance companies for certain tools like legacy or long-term care planning. And then also diversifying the tax strategy, because there's some cool things that we can do inside of some of these life insurance companies for tax efficiency and tax savings, but still leveraging market growth. So there's a lot of cool tools that we can use in that, but we want to use all these products and tools available to us to really create this holistic financial plan so that you are completely diversified across all asset classes, right? So you have some money in the market, but if there's volatility and fluctuation in the market, you have some liquid assets, you have, some money in some other different types of products that you can take from when the market's down. So we want to have our safe money, then we want to have our risk money. So it's really using all these tools available to you to create this full financial plan, but then also capitalize on the upside of the market, but then have protection on that downside of the market side.
Going through a list today from Kiplinger, the 5 Golden Rules of Retirement Planning. And number 3 on the list is avoid plans that depend on withdrawals. Your assets should generate income. So many people believe that retirement planning is pretty simple. You just get as much money as you possibly can, and then you retire, and then you just peel money off the top, and that's going to help you in retirement. That's not really income, is it, Ryan?
No, that's really kind of just being reliant upon, some type of antiquated or generally widely accepted market theory. I can take out 5% of my portfolio and never run out of money. I can take 4% out of my portfolio and never run out of money. And realistically, Fidelity did the number a couple of years ago, and based on, what we've seen in the market over the last 15, 20 years, that number is really closer to 2.8%. And, Lawrence and I have a gentleman who came to us a number of years ago up in my Towson office. His name is Bill. Bill came to me probably, 10 years ago. And he was thinking about retiring. At that point, he was about 62 years old, and he recently just came back, and he's now mid to late 70s, I would say. So probably longer than 10 years. And we were talking about, when he's going to retire, which was right about now. Here's how we can structure your portfolio to plan on you having the income that you need in retirement so that you're not going to outlive your money, so that you're not going to be reliant upon the stock market giving you X amount of return, so that way you can have, a certain percentage of withdrawals in the market. And, he liked the idea, but he ultimately decided, I want to keep doing this by myself. The stock market's been really, really great. And if I just get, 6% on my money, I can take out 4% and I'll be fine in retirement. And recently he came back to us because he retired and he's been running the numbers, and it's not going to work the way he thought about it because he did his calculations wrong. And now he's coming back to Lawrence and I saying, I need as much income as possible. I need to start taking withdrawals on my money, and I can't figure out a way to make it work. So going into retirement, just assuming that as long as I take out, as long as I get 6% return on my money, I can take out 4%, statistically speaking, I'll be fine. But, if you look at from January 1 of 2000 to December 31st of 2014, the stock market returned zero. Literally zero. The same exact starting point, the same exact ending point. Yes, it went up. Yes, it came back down. Yes, it went up. So you felt like you were making money all along. But if you had this buy and hold approach of, I'm just going to put my money in the market, put it in the S&P 500 because it does 8 to 10% over time, I'll be able to take out 4%. That doesn't work out for you. So you want a plan that accounts for those ups and downs of the market. So you're not reliant upon some antiquated withdrawal strategy in retirement.
So Ryan, just one follow-up on that. If you're selling stock to develop income, you're getting rid of an asset to pay yourself. And then the idea of peeling money off the top is getting into your principal a dirty word, so to speak, in retirement planning? Should all of your assets kick off income, or is there a point when you say it's okay to get into that million or that 2 million that you've saved all these years?
Yeah, there absolutely is a point at which it's okay to start dipping into principal because, if you get to a point in life where you're like, all right, I don't care about leaving money behind to my kids. And candidly speaking, those are my favorite type of clients because they're enjoying their money. You worked so hard to save this money, put this money aside so you'd have a successful retirement. You didn't work so hard and save so long and invest your money and take on all the stress and the ups and downs of the market for you to pass away and have your kids roll up to your funeral in brand new Corvettes, C7, C8, whatever the newest model of that Corvette is that looks kind of like a Lamborghini. You didn't work so hard for that to happen. There becomes a point at which if your goal is to enjoy your money, it is okay to start dipping into your principal. And that point really is different for everybody. It's a situation to situation technique. But yeah, there certainly is a point where it's okay. And I do advise clients, start spending this money, start enjoying this money, stop pinching pennies, stop thinking about, I have to leave behind X to the kids, because that's not always the most important thing.
You're listening to the Savvy Investor Radio Show and podcast with the team at ProStatus Financial. Ryan Herbert is here. Lawrence Kiely is here. We're going through this list here today with Kiplinger. It's the 5 golden rules of retirement planning. It says, watch your L's. Make sure you have all your L's in line. Lifetime income, liquid savings, lowering risk, lowering taxes, legacy. Use all the asset classes, the banks, the markets, the insurance companies, real estate. Avoid plans that depend on withdrawals. And now the next one, Lawrence, avoid plans that are based on probabilities. I know it's a common occurrence where a financial advisor says, well, this is what we'll do if we grow by 3%, and here's 5%, and here's 7%, and here's 10%. And my eyes get bigger as I look at all those pages because the numbers get bigger. But what they're saying here is don't rely on that. Your plan should rely on the what ifs of retirement, the things you talk about all the time, inflation and markets and taxes and all the things that can get in the way. That should be the bulk of the planning in your retirement plan.
So, I mean, I don't think that, a plan based on probabilities is really a plan, right? Because it's just based on probabilities. It's just saying that based on, the number of assets you have and the expenses you have and a growth rate of this, your money's not going to run out. So it's really just saying that you have enough money to retire, maybe, but it's not an actual plan. It's not putting anything on paper. It's not creating a realistic plan on, okay, how do I make sure that my money lasts throughout retirement? Other than just telling me I have enough money, how do I actually make sure that I do and it lasts? And if things come up, I'm able to handle those things in life. So really, what most advisors will do is they'll run some type of Monte Carlo analysis, which is exactly that. It's a probability of success that my money is going to, I'm going to not outlive my money, right? I'll have enough money in retirement to last me. But then it's taking that, what we do at Pro Status is then taking that a step further, is saying that, okay, your money is going to last you throughout retirement. Now, how do we put a plan in place to make sure that that becomes a reality? How do we set up the income bucket so that if ifs do come up, you have extra buckets of money to pull from. You can pull from those funds for vacation. If something happens to the roof, if you need a brand new car, you have those assets set aside to be able to take care of that without affecting the income, right? That's where true planning comes in, is how do we set up certain buckets for income planning? How do we set up the buckets for the what ifs? How do we make sure that our money actually does last us and that there's a sound financial plan to make sure that that happens and that we're not just depending on growth rates and probability? Because if we have the income bucket set up properly, then we can be risky or we can be conservative in the portfolio and diversify that, but we're not affected so much by the ups and downs of the market because we know regardless of what's happening in the market, we have the income coming in. So it's really creating a plan around the fact that we know our money's going to last us, but then putting a full plan together to make sure that it actually becomes a reality.
So I know it's common for someone to sit down and say, we have a 75% chance or an 80% chance that you'll not run out of money. Ryan, if I was stepping onto an airplane and the cockpit guy up there, the captain said, we're feeling very good today. We have a 75% chance of making it to Minneapolis. I don't think I'd feel good about getting on that plane. Would you?
Probably not. Nope, not at all.
Okay. Last one here on the list of Kiplinger's 5 golden rules of retirement planning is making sure that your plan is adjustable. Things are going to change in your life. Your financial plan should change with them. I think that kind of goes without saying, and that goes to the relationship. This is not a one-time transaction where you come in, we help you build a retirement plan, and then hasta la vista, have a great time in Hawaii. That's not really how this goes, is it?
I wish it was like that. But it's not. I wish I would just have to meet with my clients once and then they're set for life. But, things in life change. Your situations change. Taxes change. All these things around us change really what goes on in our financial plan. And I think the most basic evidence of that is there is a notion out there that, once I retire, if I need $6,000 a month, that's the number that I'm going to spend all the way from, if you retire at age 65, from age 65 all the way out to age 95. And quite often when people come into the office from the radio show, from the workshop, from our seminars, what we're explaining to them is spending in retirement is not linear. The first 10 years of retirement, you're going to be spending more money than what you think you are because you're doing the bucket list. You're doing the round to it. You're doing the honeydew list. You're enjoying retirement. And then somewhere, 10, 12 years into retirement. So if you retire at age 65, somewhere around 75, 77, spending really kind of flattens out. And then you do go to spending a very consistent number year after year because now you're in much more of a routine. You're not doing as much traveling. You're not doing as much of the honeydew, the round to it, the bucket list things. You're in that routine. You're going to lunch with your girlfriends. You're playing golf once or twice a week with your buddies, that type of thing. Then sometime around 82 to 85, spending really kind of drops off pretty drastically because now nap time is a much bigger factor in your life. You've lived a long life, and this is not the same thing for everybody. My father-in-law is 80 years old, and he's just as active as he was 15 years ago when he was 65. But nap time becomes a much bigger thing. So you're not spending as much money. And then normally somewhere between 90 and 95, spending ramps back up because now medical has become a thing. So I know that your retirement plan has to be adjustable for just those factors in your life of what I know is going to happen. What I don't know of what's going to happen is what's going to happen to tax rates. What's going to happen to your water heater? What's going to happen to your cars? What's going to happen to the kids? Do they need help at some point? You want to have flexibility in your retirement to not just account for the changes that we know are going to happen in your life, but for those unexpected things. And that really is the benefit of having a true financial plan that not only accounts for what's going on in the stock market, but it's going to account for what's happening in the world around you and what's happening in your life. And if you are curious as to what a true financial plan looks like that helps account for all of these 5 golden rules in retirement, where we're figuring out what our L's are, we're using all the asset classes, we're avoiding plans that are dependent upon withdrawals, we're taking those probabilities out of the equations, and we're making sure we have that flexibility in your life, give us a call at 866-597-1040, 866-597-1040, or you can visit us on our website at thesavvyinvestorradio.com. Click on the button at the top of our page. It says schedule my call without ever having to pick up the phone. Thesavvyinvestorradio.com, and let us show you what a true complete financial plan can look like for you and your family.
Well, we've given you the 5 golden rules according to Kiplinger. What are your 5 golden rules? What do you want to do in retirement? How do you want to get there? Let's figure that out together. Give us a call. Let's do some real serious work on your retirement. Do some nuts and bolts. Actually, put pen to paper here and figure out what your income needs are, where that income is coming from, what are we going to do about taxes, all the things that we've talked about here on this segment. Again, 866-597-1040, 866-597-1040, or use our website, which is thesavvyinvestorradio.com, 2 V's in savvy, thesavvyinvestorradio.com. You can click on the button that says schedule a call, and that really clicks in a 15-minute phone conversation. No cost, no obligation. You can tell us what you're concerned about, what you're worried about, what you want to know, and we'll help you out there. Get the conversation going. Maybe that means you come into the office and we sit down and really start to do some planning together. Again, thesavvyinvestorradio.com or 866-597-1040. That is all the time that we have on the show for this week. Lawrence, I'll give you the last word on this one.
This is Lawrence Kiely. Thank you for listening to the Savvy Investor radio show and podcast.
And this is Ryan Herbert. We'll see you, the Savvy Investor, next week.
Advisory services offered through ProStatus Financial Advisors Group, a registered investment advisor. Insurance licensed in Maryland. ProStatus Financial Advisors Group, LLC is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if ProStatus Financial Advisors Group is licensed in your state, please call 410-863-1040. ProStatus Group, LLC is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through representatives of ProStatus Financial Advisors Group.